Look, I tracked a dead iPhone across 3 cities without it ever being turned on once. You see your power button? It's basically a placebo. We'd been conditioned to believe that off means dark. But in the world of modern cybersecurity, that's a dangerous fantasy, mate. Whilst you think you've terminated the session, the hardware is literally whispering to every cell tower and Bluetooth beacon in range. It's a brilliant piece of deceptive engineering that turns your most personal device into a persistent snitch. Think about the psychology of the power button for a second. I mean, for decades, it's been the ultimate kill switch, right? You press it, the circuit breaks, and the machine dies. But on a modern smartphone, that button is nothing more than a polite request to the operating system. You weren't actually cutting the power. You were just putting the device into a deep, observant coma. Look, the reality is that your phone has multiple levels of consciousness. When you slide to power off, the screen goes black and the main processor takes a nap. But the silicon inside? It's still very much awake. This is a state known as power reserve. Since iOS 15, Apple has leveraged this low-power protocol that keeps specific chips energized, even when you think the battery is flat. I'm talking about the secure element and the always-on processor. These components act like a pilot light on a gas stove. Tiny, flickering, but never truly extinguished. They broadcast a Bluetooth low-energy signal every few seconds. This signal is picked up by the hundreds of millions of other devices passing you on the street, creating a massive invisible mesh network that reports your location back to the mothership. Now, imagine your phone is a dark house. You've turned off the lights, you've locked the front door, but in the basement, there's a small team of people still sending out postcards to every neighbor on the block. Those postcards contain your digital fingerprint and your exact coordinates. The marketing teams at Silicon Valley will tell you this is a brilliant feature to help you find a stolen device. And sure, on the surface, it's helpful. But from a cybersecurity perspective, it's a permanent, hardware-level backdoor to your physical location. Usually a malicious actor has to fight to maintain persistence on a device after a reboot. Now, the manufacturer has built that persistence in by design. Whilst you're sleeping, or sitting in a private meeting with your phone off, the ghost in the machine is still talking. You aren't just carrying a communication tool. You're carrying a beacon that refuses to be silenced. There is no physical switch to cut the cord. And in our world, that is a bloody, daunting reality. Silicon Valley sold you a dream of total security. They called it Find My, they called it ultra-low power mode. And look, it was marketed as the ultimate safety net for the forgetful user. The promise was simple. Even if your battery died or some thief turned off your phone, you were still in control. And it was sold as this brilliant piece of engineering, designed to protect your $1,200 investment, right? But I want us to peel back the layers of the SoC, the system on a chip, to see the architecture for what it really is. The reality is, modern SoCs contain an always-on subsystem. When you think you're turning off your phone, you're actually just putting the primary brain to sleep. The main application processor shuts down, sure, but a secondary, low-level chip stays powered by a reserve battery. This chip is responsible for handling your Bluetooth, your NFC, and the secure element. It is essentially a miniature, invisible computer that remains active and alert. It's broadcasting signals and listening for pings, operating completely independent of the operating system you think you've closed. Whilst you are under the impression that your device is just a cold piece of glass and aluminum, this secondary system is still running its own proprietary firmware. Look, you are effectively carrying a device that never truly sleeps. And more importantly, a device that you cannot truly silence. This hardware-level persistence means that the boundary between on and off has been quite literally erased. But that is not even the craziest part. Because if this hidden computer can communicate with the outside world while the phone is dead, it raises a massive question about who really holds the keys to that connection. You see, there was one detail everyone missed when they praised this feature as a lifesaver. That one detail? I mean, look, it is the absolute absence of a physical kill switch. You see, whilst you are sleeping, or whilst your phone sits seemingly dead in a drawer, it is maintaining this low-level electronic heartbeat. This is where it gets bloody daunting. This persistent state creates what I call a permanent attack surface, and it has become the ultimate playground for state-level spyware like Pegasus. Think about how your phone usually works. I mean, iOS and Android are like heavily guarded fortresses, right? Layers of sandboxing, encryption, weekly security patches. But this low-level firmware, it is the ghost in the machine. It operates in a total vacuum with none of those robust security layers. It is essentially a stripped-back, vulnerable computer that lacks the ability to defend itself. And it never, ever turns off. Intelligence agencies and dark web actors, they do not need your phone to be active to track you anymore. They can potentially ping this dormant chip to triangulate your exact location, or wake up specific sensors without ever triggering a boot-up sequence. You would never see a logo. You would never feel a vibration. In the cybersecurity world, we are looking at a reality that is baked directly into the silicon. It is an unpatchable vulnerability. Look, if the flaw is in the hardware architecture itself, a software update is just a band-aid on a bloody massive bullet wound. The real loser in this ecosystem is anyone who requires true anonymity. Activists, whistleblowers, or even just a citizen who values their right to be left alone. We have been conditioned to believe that hitting a power button grants us privacy. But in this new reality, offline is a legacy concept that simply no longer exists. We have traded the ability to truly disappear for the minor convenience of finding a lost handset. But as I look closer at this silent connection, the mystery deepens. If your phone is talking to the world while it is supposedly dead, who exactly is it talking to? Because the answer involves a shadowy network that most of us were never supposed to find.
Look, the reality is that we have already entered the era of ambient computing, where the very concept of an off switch has basically become a legacy artifact. It's a comfort blanket for the digitally naive, honestly. You see, when you press that power button and the screen goes dark, you are not actually killing the device. You are merely putting it into a low-power state, where the secure element and the Bluetooth chip continue to whisper to every other device in the vicinity. It's a brilliant bit of engineering, quite literally, but it is also a fundamental shift in the power dynamic between the consumer and the corporation. I mean, we are no longer the masters of our hardware. We are merely the custodians of these sensors. Now, think about it. Whilst we were distracted by the convenience of finding a lost handset in a taxi, the tech giants were busy building the world's largest crowdsourced surveillance mesh. They have effectively turned your expensive piece of glass and titanium into a tracking beacon for the highest bidder. And the most daunting part? You cannot opt out of the physics. Short of desoldering the battery, the hardware is designed to stay alive.
Think of it like a house where the lights are out and the doors are locked, but there is still a tiny speaker in the letterbox, constantly whispering your location to every passerby. I think we have to ask ourselves a very uncomfortable question, mate. Is a smart device that you cannot truly kill actually yours? Or are you just carrying a piece of corporate infrastructure in your pocket? We have traded the fundamental right to be invisible for the minor convenience of never losing our hardware. It is a Faustian bargain at a bloody massive scale. If you truly value your privacy, if you want to be certain that you are not being tracked whilst you sleep or whilst you have a private conversation, the reality is stark. No nonsense. The only real off switch left in this world is a literal Faraday bag or a hammer. Anything else is just theatre. The future isn't about how connected we can become. We have already solved that. The real question for the next decade is whether we are ever allowed to be alone again. Choose wisely. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe leave the phone at home once in a while. If you want to see how deep this rabbit hole actually goes, hit that subscribe button and join us. I will see you in the next one.